Hello, folks. Welcome into the Her Hoop Stats podcast. It is, July 15th, Tuesday, July 15th. That is where we're at. I'm going to blame this on I'm used to usually going on Mondays. So that's my story. I'm sticking to it. I am JV Steyer Johnson alongside Brittany Carper. We're shaking things up today. I'm usually on Mondays and usually Brittany and I are on Fridays. So we're bringing you all kinds of curveballs here. But we've got some really fun games to get into from last night. First, we got to mention that Portland, hey, you remember that you're supposed to start play next year and that there's things that go along with that. So it is official. The Portland Fire are running it back. I think that the branding they have released, having the flame also kind of arose, pretty neat. I like it. It's unique. I like having unique kind of branding. I think that that's something that all three of the expansion teams that we have content from have done very well, is being unique. Obviously, the Valkyries, as I was saying on social media, have kind of adopted them as my second team because the Valkyries purple, first of all, is my all-time favorite color. And then on top of that, super fun to watch, super easy to root for. We'll get into that. But then the tempo, obviously, kind of controversial in some ways. There's a lot of very strong thoughts on the tempo name, but it's unique. I love the colors. I love the kind of retro branding. And now the Portland Fire, I like tapping into kind of the history and not trying to reinvent the wheel. You already have a connection that you can make there. I'm really hoping that means that Cleveland is going to be the Rockers again, but I digress on that. But I like the branding, the logo. I'm excited to start getting some more content, hopefully, out of Portland now that they're running, now that they have an interim president back in place. And so I'm just hoping that this is a sign of, okay, we're putting this out, but we have a lot more coming soon, not just like a placation of, oh yeah, I guess you guys want a little bit of something. Here you go.
Absolutely. I was thrilled to see them finally put that out yesterday. Like you, I really like their logo, what they've done with it. I think it's sharp, but definitely their picture yesterday of Jackie Stiles, kind of an ode to their past, I think was really, really cool too. So like you said, just excited. They've kind of got the ball rolling there, and hopefully we can see more content and kind of see what they're doing to build their franchise up, because certainly the bar has been set with the Valkyries and the tempo in terms of what they were able to roll out and kind of what we're seeing from them.
Absolutely. So I'm excited to see what else we get from them. And then obviously some more coming down the pipe here before too awful long. So definitely a lot of excitement there. But to the point of the Valkyries, let's just start with them. They were the nightcap. We will get to Lynx Sky after this, but I want to talk about the Mercury and Valkyries. I first of all thought it was really, really cool what they did with their just like theme for the game of talking about the WBL, having a bunch of merch there, having just kind of honoring the history of not just the Bay Area, but women's basketball as a whole. At one point early on, coming back from a break, they were showing just some shots of the displays they had out for teams from the WBL. And it was the first I knew that Iowa had a professional women's basketball team. And obviously I've lived here for almost my whole life, but that's 27 years that I've been here. So, that was a little bit before my time. And so when I'm seeing the Iowa Cornets, I was sitting there like, you're kidding me. And that's where Molly Bolin was playing. Like, I immediately was going down a rabbit hole. Like, I already was shopping for Valkyries merch because, as I said, into it. And then we're adding that into the mix because I'm like, that goes so crazy. So to be able to, I feel like I'm just kind of making this connection right now, but like as an expansion team, as a team that is, I think, extremely easy to root for, extremely fun to watch, just as we've discussed extensively. A team full of people who have been kind of role players, been maybe, as they've said, sixth women, things like that. I think that that appeals on a really broad level. And so I think that also being the first expansion team in so long and the kind of excitement in the Bay has made it really easy for people everywhere to really engage with them and really follow along with them. And that's something that I personally have really experienced, where I've become very invested in the Valkyries. As my husband was saying yesterday, he's like, an easy like second team for me in the league. And he's picky with his teams for
Mhm.
sure. And then when you do something like that, where they're not just talking about, like I said, the history of teams in the Bay, they're talking about the history of an entire league. And they're informing people across the country that had no idea of the history within their own state. Like, I just thought that that was a really cool experience to get from watching that broadcast. And so that's just another in a long list of things that the Valkyries are doing so right.
Yeah, they just knock it out of the park. Side note, if they ever, fired up another team in Iowa, I would hope it would not be the Cornets, but,
Yeah.
um,
We
you
can leave
know
that one in the
yes, but like you said, I had no when I saw your tweet, I had never known that Iowa had a professional women's team either. So that was super cool. But I think just informing, like you said, the population of women's basketball fans that maybe don't know the history as much, and obviously even for women's hoops junkies like we are, there's still a lot we don't know. So I thought that was just really cool. But they've just done an excellent job in every facet. And I think they're an easy team to root for because not only do you have this group that's kind of been under the radar their whole careers, but then they've obviously exceeded expectations. So now you have a team that okay, they're easy to root for because they've always kind of been in the shadows, but now they're here front and center and they're playing good basketball. And so to me, and then you turn on a game and you watch at Ballhalla and it's like, how do you not enjoy watching a game there especially? So I think just they're an easy team for people who are just maybe even a casual women's basketball fan to turn that on and get behind.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm just getting some of the additional details here. Like, I think that it's really cool that they reunited a good portion of the former members of the Pioneers, who was a WBL team out in the Bay Area. I just again, I think that it's really important and really cool to see people being honored, long overdue recognition, and so to kind of keep that tie to history while continuing to move forward. I just thought that to have interviews with a bunch of the WBL players who had been in the area, and now to give them the opportunity to introduce to get things kicked off for the night there with a sold out crowd, with the incredible support that the Valkyries have out there. I just think that is kind of the textbook for how to do it. Getting to the game, a little bit of a disappointing ending, obviously, but it's just another chapter in the Valkyries so competitive across the board. Like, they really just fight, scratch, claw. Like, you might get them down, but you will not get them out. The way I've said it before is that when they're playing poorly, they seem really motivated to turn it around. And when they play well, it really snowballs. And so to have a 1 point loss to the Mercury is tough, but it happens. I just wanted to fact check myself, and they have not had a loss by more than 11 points since May 27th against New York. And that was their second loss of the season, the fourth game of the year. Since then, the worst losses have been by 11 points twice. Everything else has been single digits. So I think that being able to stay that competitive is really major for them. It also says how well Phoenix has been playing, the kind of cohesion Phoenix has found, that even when you still are without Satu Sabali and Kalia Copper and Lexi Held, you're able to withstand the kind of environment that's present in Ballhalla, and then you're able to go out and really get things going. Headline from the game, I think, is pretty obvious for Phoenix. DeWanna Bonner, pretty happy to be there. 7 for 8 from the floor. Her only miss was from three. Had 11 rebounds, 22 points, had a pair of assists, didn't have a turnover. I mean, she was tremendous. Got a little bit of a connection with their point forward. It looks like they've played together for years, but it was fun to see them really kind of find their footing. And man, does that make Phoenix a scary team when they're back to full strength. If that's what you're getting from DeWanna coming in off the bench, oh boy, the back half of this season for them is going to be really, really, I think, impressive.
Yeah, I think she for sure was the headline of that game, no doubt. And, you know, it's funny because when she went through all the fever stuff, the discourse online, you know, she's washed, she's whatever. And we talk about this a lot, but it's about fit. And I just, for some reason, we, you know, maybe we don't know all the ins and outs, but like she did not feel comfortable in Indiana or whatever that was. You know, and now you reunite her with AT and, you know, in Phoenix, and what she provided last night. I mean, like you said, that is just going to propel them, you know, to even greater heights once they're fully healthy. I think I read the Mercury posted it was only the 5th time in team history with 20 points, 10 plus rebounds. She owns all of those off the bench. You know, and so that's the thing too. It's like she understands she is a professional. She's a 2-time WNBA champion who is willing to play whatever role is asked of her. And so again, the narrative that like she didn't want to come off the bench or whatever that was is just false. And so to see her have that game last night, you know, you just kind of want to put your fingers to the Twitter or whatever it is to tell people like, hey, like she still is really good at basketball. And so I thought, you know, it was just fun. She had a couple of connections that I think you only have with someone if you've played with them. They have those 2 kind of alley-oop passes.
Oh my god.
You know, backdoor. So just super fun. And then obviously you can't go, you know, through that game without mentioning Alyssa Thomas either. Like just incredible. Like what she does and really on both ends of the court, I think is what I really appreciate about her game is she plays so hard. But when you have someone with the ability to get a rebound and control everything that happens after that, you are just going to be really hard to beat. And that's what she provides, you know, night in and night out for that Mercury team. And so, you know, but again, if that's what we're going to get from DeWanna Bonner, they're going to be really, really tough to beat the second half.
Yeah, those alley-oops were crazy. The second one especially, where she's like tipping it almost behind the backboard. She's going up, and I mean her wingspan is absurd. There's 3 defenders around her. She's off balance. It's just like, first of all, supreme confidence from AT to toss that up for her. And just great touch around the rim. I also think that it's really good to see Alyssa Thomas recognizing opportunities where she needs to be putting the ball up more. That's been a pretty, I think, pervasive thing that I've noticed about her game, is that there's times where she really wants to get her teammates involved. I think she really likes being the distributor, and that's such a great thing. Like that's something you cannot train into someone, at least not easily. But because of the matchup problem she presents, as far as her ability to handle the ball, her vision, and then her size and strength, there's always been times where you just sit there and watch and you say, Alyssa, I don't think anyone on the court can guard you. And I think she's starting to recognize that a little bit more. And so having the most shots on the team for her is big. And that's, you know, 14 shots is really not a crazy amount of shots to take. You're still seeing a really great amount of balance across the board, but you take 14 shots, you're 50% from the floor. that ain't bad at all, especially when she was not getting to the rim nearly as much as she usually does because of the way the Valkyries defend. She was taking a lot more of the mid range and knocking quite a few of
Mhm.
them down. And so making them respect her further and further out to kind of the very edge of her range is great as far as, again, the defensive scheme that the Valkyries have where they want to collapse on the paint. They want to make you beat them from outside the paint. Um, I think that that's a really big step forward for the Mercury. And then, as we've kind of come to expect, you just always have someone different willing to step up. I mean, obviously, Dewana Bonner coming in off the bench, like you said, like she is very capable, very willing to play the sixth woman role. And again, when you have players that understand the game, that have the experience, there is a market advantage in coming in off the bench, especially when you're a player like Dewana Bonner, where you have the versatility. She can sub in for any player on the floor for Phoenix. She can play nearly any position on the floor. So she can be your first person off the bench, regardless of why you're sending someone in. And so when she's sitting there and she's able to kind of analyze what's happening, she's able to pick out, okay, that's going to be my opportunity. That's going to be my matchup. That's who I'm going to be guarding. And so this is what they've done to start the game. This is what I'm going to adjust. That, first of all, only comes with experience. And especially on a Phoenix team that has a lot of international experience, has a lot of basketball experience, but a comparatively low level of WNBA experience, to add that in at this point in the season with the way they were already playing,
Mhm.
like, I mean, I think I will say I continue to be surprised in a really positive way by the Mercury, because there was additional discussion of when the reports came out that Dewana wanted to go to Phoenix. There was a lot of people saying, "Hey, should they do it? Like, they have such great chemistry. They've really found something here." And it was kind of weighing the, do you have the risk of making your focal point unhappy and not bringing in, her fiance, or do you
Mhm.
maybe mess with the chemistry a little bit? And so it's unfortunate they had to let Musa go as a result, but what they kept and then what Dewana Bonner is bringing
Mhm.
is, I mean, it's simply elevating them even more than I could have anticipated.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that was the hard part there, was to figure out, was it gonna disrupt what they had done? And but when you talk about someone like Dewana Bonner, who is a professional and has so much experience, and I think you have someone like Alyssa Thomas that's obviously driving that train, forward. There's a really good balance of understanding what your role is and how you fit, and I don't think she was trying to step on toes or anything
No.
like that. They want to win, and I think that was certainly a piece that is going to help them, going forward with experience, like you said, being able to play pretty much any position on the court. I mean, she was essentially playing their, five last night late in the game because they took Mac out. Kalani Brown wasn't in, but also a tip of the cap to Kat Westbeld. She had career high four, made three. So I didn't want to let that one go either,
Yeah,
because, like you said, they always seem to kind of find somebody that steps up. And that's why I think Phoenix can be so scary, is because you're still doing this without Lexi Held, without Satu Sabali, without Ka Copper. Like, when you get those three players back, now it's really hard for all of them to have an off night without someone else stepping up, for them. So I really think they're going to be a fun team when they're healthy to watch in the second half.
agreed. Folks, we do actually plan a little bit before episodes. I know sometimes it doesn't seem like it. I'm gonna rearrange our thoughts here minorly to discuss with the Valkyries. I think that, as we've noted, the biggest thing that they're missing is a true center player. And last night, Monique Billings gave them really great minutes. I mean, in 19 minutes, she was plus 21 in a 1 point loss. So I've discussed this definitely with Cindy, wanting some more of Monique Billings. But on top of that, there's been many reports for a while now that Ileana Rupert was planning on coming over and joining the Valkyries after Eurobasket. And so waiving Stephanie Talbot before the cut deadline adds a little bit of fuel to that. There hasn't been confirmation as of yet, but we would potentially be getting that here fairly soon. I think that the assumption would be that she would be, if this is happening, she would likely be preparing to come over and be like on her way ish right now, and then probably
Mhm.
start playing after the All-Star break. Um, but to me, if that happens, this matchup last night was between two of the most, and dare I say, the two most dangerous teams down the stretch on the back half of the season in the WNBA. Because for Phoenix, as we said, you're getting DB in there. You have the kind of contributions you've gotten across the board from your rookies, from your, less experienced players. Then you're still bringing in Satu, Lexi, and Ka. For Golden State, you're getting Tiffany Hayes healthy again. You're getting her back to a better level of efficiency. You have your players back from Eurobasket. If you add Ileana Rupert as an actual center who still can stretch the floor, still can play that fast-paced style, still
Mhm.
can defend like crazy, then you're not missing any pieces anymore.
Right, and I think to have someone like that, I mean, if you look at the Bucks from last night, 14 of their 25 made shots were from the 3. So, to find someone that can be around the rim and more of a presence for that team would be huge, because then now you still have the ability to have the three-point shooters, but when you're missing, I mean, they shot 42% from the 3 and 33.8 overall. So, when you're looking at those numbers, just how inefficient they were around the rim or inside the 3-point line, to then provide someone who can add that would, I mean, just like you said, make that team much more dangerous than they already are.
So that I'm personally really hoping that happens. Ileana Rupert, I think, is so fun to watch. I watched her in a good bit of the overseas leagues prior to the WNBA season. I
Mhm.
can't really keep up with everything when the WNBA's in season, but
Yes.
that little bit of a gap we had where the college season ended and we were just waiting
Mhm.
for the W to start. I did get in some film, some watching, primarily watching Bridget Carlton over there. But
Right.
I was able to get a little bit of a look there. But I certainly would love to see Ileana back over here. She's a fun player to watch, and definitely fits the mold of what the Valkyries have, which is really fun, versatile players that are going to play extremely, extremely hard. So would love to have some updates on that, hopefully before too awful long, especially considering, yeah, we're coming right up to the All-Star break. So
Yep.
fingers crossed on that one.
Yes.
Would
Agreed.
be very exciting. So let's shift gears a little bit over to Lynx Sky. I I forgot that this isn't the end of the series. There's another one after the All-Star break. I
Yeah.
I'm frustrated because it's been such a fun matchup,
Mhm.
and we deserve to see it develop more over the course of the season, because we're seeing fatigue on the side of Minnesota. We're seeing injuries and just, some kind of, I mean, a lot of things with Chicago where they're just kind of finding their footing and people are getting a little bit beat up. And so they're not at full strength. And so I just feel like if you could put even a couple weeks between matchups, this, I mean, they're already great matchups.
Mhm.
This could have been even another level. Not the reality of the situation is what it is. But man, Lynx needed to bounce back. They did. But I tell you what, the Sky, I definitely don't feel any worse about them last
No.
night. They just fight. I I keep waiting for there to be like some level of regression from where it seems like they've taken multiple really big steps forward. And over the past few games, I really haven't seen that regression. They've been pretty consistent, and that's even with major adversity to overcome, where you lose Ariel Atkins after the first half yesterday. You obviously are without Courtney Vandersloot for the rest of the season. Didn't see Mariah Jefferson last night. So you are thin on the perimeter, but Rachel Banham is stepping up really big time. Camila Cardozo, even though she really didn't get a whole lot of scoring, she was very impactful in many ways, just, making things difficult defensively, getting in there and rebounding. And then obviously Angel Reese continues to be tremendously efficient. I mean, she has obviously just been working. 9 of 14 for 22 points last night. 10 rebounds, 3 assists, and a lot of that is because people just couldn't get a shot. I think again a little bit of a fatigue factor for the Sky as well. And the Lynx turned their defense back on. We saw a lot more of the defense that we've come to expect from the Lynx, but I certainly still feel really good about Chicago going forward. Minnesota, I think they just desperately need the All-Star break. They really just need a little bit of time to rest.
Yeah, and I on the broadcast last night, they were mentioning, Cheryl Reeve and her staff had figured out the rest time, and the Lynx were under about a day, and their opponents were at 3 or 4 days. And so over that course, you're gonna see the fatigue, especially with the way they play their roster. So the All-Star break will be very welcomed. I thought their defense though last night was the big difference. They were kind of everywhere. They were smothering. They got their hands on so many balls. They forced so many Sky turnovers, which has really been their Achilles heel. They talked about it in the post game. Both Coach Tyler Marsh and Angel Reese were mentioning, they have to shore that up. And I thought that really was the big difference. In the game, just, especially they were up, I think it was 46-36, close to the halftime break, and a couple of unforced turnovers. And then, a team like Minnesota, you just can't do that against. Yep. They went on an 8-0 run. Now it's a 2-point game going into, halftime. That is such a momentum swing. Yeah. As you know, in the game of basketball, that just makes it really hard when you give a team as good as Minnesota. And then, of course, I thought Nafisa Collier was just really good last night. Sometimes it's easy to not mention her because it's kind of what you expect from her every night at this point, but to see her really get her 3-point stroke back was great to see. What she went 4 of 7. And so again, just the workmanlike effort. She and this is also a point to her, when you watch her and someone like Alyssa Thomas play on both ends of the court and how hard they play and what they do to make a difference on both the offensive and defensive end. I mean, you really just can't, there isn't a greater testament or a, compliment you can give a player, I think, when you watch and just how hard, they affect the game. And so to me, I thought, the Sky, that's going to be tough if Atkins misses a significant amount of time. I think Haley Van Lith is still trying to kind of find her footing in terms of really being able to initiate the offense from the point guard role. A lot of times what happens is she gets pressured. She uses the ball release of a ball screen release. And then it almost is like she either has to shoot it or you make that one pass because she's just not to the point where she feels comfortable enough in initiating the offense. And some of that was the Minnesota defense, but, certainly just really impressed with what the Sky have been doing over the last couple of weeks. Angel Reese, you can't say enough about just what she's done. I think the statistic was like 33%. She was shooting at the beginning of the year, within 5 feet, and now it's like up around 56 or 57. And so kudos to her because as we've talked about before, the kind of, the backlash she gets and, the unfair treatment sometimes, she's put her head down and just worked. And so whenever I see her play and I, see her have a really good game and what she's done with her double doubles and, just I think really put in a role where she's really good at. Like, I think we forget, like, they talk about it a lot. She was a guard in high school and then she
Yeah.
went to LSU and it was like, hey, you're going to just put your back to the basket. And so now I think she's really finding herself again. And
Mhm.
so that has been really fun to watch because I think we're just seeing the type of player that she can be. Because I would imagine over the next year or two, you're going to see her probably try to extend her range to be a more consistent 3-point shooter too.
Mhm.
Because once she's able to do that, I mean, she's really going to unlock really every level of the game that she can impact.
Absolutely. I mean, we've talked about how extending range, having the ability to pass just makes you, I mean, essentially undefendable. It's what we've seen from Asia Wilson, where she can hit the three, not something she does super consistently or attempts really consistently, but her ability to shoot the deep mid range really consistently, plus her height, her strength, her ability to finish at the rim, put the ball on the floor, and pass is just like, it's a very unique skill set. And so for Angel to be able to continue to do that has been crucial. I also now am kind of putting things together in my head. I am perhaps a little surprised that Chicago didn't make any moves at the deadline. I think that there's obviously been injury issues ongoing, and now I hope for their sake Ariel Atkins does not miss any extended time. But I wouldn't have been necessarily surprised to see them potentially cut Maddie Westbeld to allow for another roster spot open. I think that the fact that they didn't do that means that they do have a lot of confidence in the way that Rachel Bannum's come along as kind of a point guard again. Like,
Mhm.
I think Rachel's at her best when she is able to play off ball because she is such a threatening shooter. But
Yeah.
when you're in a position where that's what you've kind of got to do, she's done it well.
Mhm.
And then obviously they're spending a lot of time with Angel at sort of
Yeah.
that point forward position, and that's doing a lot for them. I would not have been upset to see them bring in another ball handler, but hopefully they're getting Mariah Jefferson healthy. Hopefully Ariel Atkins stays healthy. So that'll be very interesting to see going forward for them. But yeah, I mean, Angel very, very solid. I think that even having 5 turnovers last night, like I don't think that all of those are directly her.
Right.
That's a very common sentiment, right? Is that
Mhm.
turnovers can be on the passer, they could be on the
Yes.
receiver. There's a lot of stuff that goes into that, and even so, 5 with the amount of time she has the ball in her hands
Mhm.
is really not bad. I her vision, especially I think one of the biggest things I've noticed is around the rim, to have her length and able to just pass literally over the heads of defenders at the rim over
Mhm.
to usually Camilla. Sometimes, you'll get a guard flashing in or Elizabeth Williams, but like I just have been so beyond impressed with that. I felt like, again, obviously this is a tough matchup on the interior for Minnesota as a team that doesn't really have that like prototypical
Mhm.
center player where they focus a lot on players that can stretch the floor. They got some very necessary minutes out of Maria Klundakova. Didn't do anything like incredible, but didn't do anything terrible either.
Mhm.
Just pretty steady. Jess Shepard didn't play a ton, but gave some solid minutes. Alana Smith, same thing. They just were sort of rotating through people, seeing what they could give. And again, when you're banging down low with Camila Cardoso, with Elizabeth Williams, particularly as those center players, and then if you're not with them, if you're going to have to be really stretching out and essentially guarding a guard post
Mhm.
hybrid with Angel Reese, like that's a really tough ask. And so I felt like outside of that, the rotations were so much better for Minnesota. That's always been I think their biggest strength on the defensive end is that since they don't have that typical center,
Yep.
they play what I think positionless basketball should be,
Mhm.
where you have the versatility to make a lot of things work. You have certain matchups, certain places where you're better, but you can be really flexible with it. And so their help was way better. The timing of it was vastly improved. And then when you have, again, we keep talking about this level of fatigue. Kayla McBride able to get some shots to fall. Clearly, just again, somewhat tired, but they were able to find a lot better opportunities. I I am obligated to mention Bridget Carlton having a really solid game. She's someone who, especially when that fatigue is in play, she always hangs her hat on defense. That's been her thing
Mhm.
the entire time she's been in the league. And so I do think that at times her offense can suffer because of that, because she will be the one who will put it all on the line and do literally everything she can to make sure that she's helping cover for her teammates, things like that. And she has the height, she has the length, she has the athleticism to do so much on the defensive end. And she's had a really rough go of it shooting to start the year, but she's so capable. And so to see the trust that Minnesota maintains in her, and then to see her not go off by any means, but
Mhm.
shoot 50% from the floor for 11 points in a 13-point win, like that is really, really big just to see some shots fall, especially early. And then what I was most impressed with is looking over to the other half of the box score from her, the stuff that's really easy to overlook, where you have 5 assists, or excuse me, 5 rebounds, 2 assists, 3 steals, a block, and
Mhm.
no turnovers in 30 minutes. Like it's just it's kind of a glue player type thing. And so when you have 4 of your starters scoring in double figures, you do get contributions off the bench with Natisha Heidemann and Jessica Shepard. And then it was fun to see a little minute of Anastasia Alirikosu get in there and score. I
Yep.
watching her warm up before the Commissioner's Cup, like right in front of me. She's taller than I realized and more athletic than I realized. I was
Yeah.
like, ooh, I see what the vision is here, Minnesota. Like, maybe
Mhm.
not this year, but next year, yeah, yeah, you have something here. But regardless, I think that Minnesota, I was worried about them just completely
Mhm.
limping into the All-Star break
Yeah.
because of the way the schedule flushes out. And so it was good to see them get that win, bounce back a little bit. Once again, basically no rest time because they have a day game tomorrow against Phoenix.
Yeah. That'll be a tough. I
Oh.
think though, like too, you mentioned Bridget, but I just think Minnesota is best when they get contributions from almost everyone that on the offensive end, they're being aggressive. They're looking to
Mhm.
score the basket. Well, I think sometimes what happens is they get kind of stagnant. They ask a lot of Nafisa or, Courtney Williams kind of, and especially when they're like that, when they get multiple people that are being aggressive on offense, maybe the shots aren't falling all the time, but I think that's when they're at their best is when everyone can kind of be that threat. And of course, like you mentioned, Kayla McBride seeing some shots fall was really big too, because I think she will be a big key for them in determining kind of what their second half and postseason looks
Mhm.
like. Just because her ability to shoot the basketball, she has such a quick release. So I think for her, that's just going to be, really important that like whatever that second half looks like, if they're able to get some rest or what they look like, going into the playoffs, that's going to be really important for that team just because of how reliant they really are on, their 5 or 6 players. And
Mhm.
so that'll be interesting kind of to follow what that second half looks like going into the postseason for them.
Absolutely. Especially, I think that I keep finding the silver lining for Kayla McBride is that I think she's a major, major snub for the All Star game. But boy, if anyone deserves a little bit of rest, I think it's her. And so they haven't confirmed the entire lineup for all of the competitions. I wouldn't be shocked if she at least has an invite for the 3-point contest. I'm
Hmm.
not sure. But regardless of what exactly is going on there for her, I think that being able to take a little bit of additional rest will be really beneficial. And so when your ultimate goal is not mid-season, All-Star game accolades. It's you're looking to
Yes.
run it back to the championship. You're looking to run it back to the finals, and you want to
Mhm.
get it this time. That break is going to be important. So, super, super fun games last night. We got a couple more coming up tonight. We got some tomorrow, and then we're right into the All-Star break. So, certainly a lot going on. We didn't even get into, and I'm not even going to like totally dive into the topic, but we were planning on mentioning a little bit of the fact that the rumors are still swirling that Emma Meesman may be coming over. I'll put my pitch out there for it. Emma, if you're listening, I hope that you are heavily considering the Lynx. But that's been the rumor, is that they're one of the teams she was considering, but it's
Mhm.
hard to say. I mean, there just are not any confirmed reports. It's all kind of second, third hand and based off of, again, rumor is exactly the word for this.
Yep.
So personally, again, as someone who loves bigs, who
Mhm.
loves versatility, I really would love to see Emma back in the
Yeah.
league again. I miss watching her play in the
Mhm.
W. I would make a point of making sure I got to a game of hers live, wherever that
Mhm.
may be. But fingers crossed. I do think one of the really fun things about the All-Star break is that on top of the All-Star festivities, you do start seeing quite a few potential like short-term moves or moves for the rest of the season now that some cap space has cleared. So
Yep.
just a lot going
Yep.
on.
A
A lot
lot going on.
of All right. Well, Brittany, thank you so much for joining me early in the week. I
Yes.
guess we'll catch up in a while.
Yeah, it will
It's been
be.
like a week and a half. So,
Mhm.
folks, thank you so much for tuning in. As always, we've got a couple more of our quote unquote normal episodes this week. And then we do have some of our Her Hoop Stats contributors that are going to be on location in Indiana this weekend. So they'll be bringing you a whole bunch of content from All-Star Weekend. But in the meantime, we'll have, like I said, another couple of normal episodes dropping Wednesday and Thursday. And then Friday, Saturday, we've got All-Star content coming to you. You can find me online at JSteyz, JSTEYZ. Find Brittany Carper at Brittany Carper. Make sure you're following along with our Her Hoop Stats platforms. That's just at Her Hoop Stats anywhere you're looking, and make sure that you are subscribed to our newsletter, the podcast, all that fun stuff, because we have so much coming to you. You don't want to miss anything. Thanks, folks. We'll talk to you next time.